just to show you the 5 o'clock track. So here it is, heading towards Florida. Now, the fact that it's probably already a 4 means you're going to see this as a 4. And a lot of people asking, is it going to get to a 5? Honestly, folks, Category 5 and 4 aren't a big difference, okay? The impacts literally aren't going to change that much. So it's really one of those things where nobody's going to go, oh, only got hit with a 140-mile-an-hour hurricane and not a 155. Trust me, the category is so overrated. It's all about the impacts. So in this case, the wind impacts are huge. 140, 150-mile-an-hour winds, they all cause damage, whether it's a 4 or 5. Storm surge, off the charts. Even if that number goes down, the surge is already built up. This is like a bulldozer pushing water towards the coast. If the storm weakens, guess what? The momentum in the water's still there. So the surge comes. We saw this with Katrina. People forget. Katrina was a 5 in the Gulf. It approached the coast and weakened all the way down to a 2 as it was making landfall. The problem was the surge was already built up and it caused all that flooding. Same story with Dorian. Don't get caught up in the category. Oh, it's weakening. The surge is still there, the wind and the flooding is still going to be there. So again, those are things we kind of split hairs with meteorologists, like is it going to be a 5? Probably doesn't matter. If it's a 4 or 5, it's the same, okay? It's going to have the exact same impacts. We're at the point where it's a major hurricane, which is Category 3 and higher, which is going to cause some devastation. So you see it moving towards the Florida coast. This is the million-dollar question. Does it take this churn offshore? Does it do it near the coast? Does it do it inland? Does it do it on the West Coast? That's a possibility, but all the trends have been this way. And I tweeted earlier tonight, I was telling people, hey, we want the shift to the east. And people are like, oh, I don't. Yes, you do. Every single person, whether you're Florida, the Carolinas, you want it to go east at this point because hugging the coast or near the coast is bad news or just inland because that means it scrapes the coast all the way. The further east it goes, it could stay offshore completely. That would put all of the coast, even the Carolinas, on the west side, which is the weak side of the storm. So let me extend this out all the way, and I'll show you that the Carolinas need to pay attention because if this recurves like this, that's good. If it recurves up into the Carolinas, crosses the coast, that's bad news. And if you're not familiar with how hurricanes work and why that's important, is the west side is the weak side of the storm. Tropical systems, by their very nature, the northeast quadrant is the strongest part of the storm. So we talk about quadrants of hurricanes, which ones are the worst. That northeast quadrant, which I'll show you here in a minute, if you take a hurricane and split it into fourths, if it's moving this way, this is not where you want to be. That is horrible. You've got the strongest winds, the biggest surge, and the heaviest rain. The reason is, if this is moving 10 miles an hour and the winds are spinning 140, there are 150 there because you add the forward speed. Same somewhat story for this other quadrant here. Now this side, because there's moisture and the ocean is always on this side usually, remember, you're pulling in water, this is drier air coming off the land, so there's less rain, less surge, but you can still get significant surge there. You just don't get as much rain and the winds are much lighter. Back right, significant wind. There's always really strong winds on that part. And then back here, weakest but also dangerous. So this side of the storm is much weaker than this side. So if the coast is here, you want it to be offshore. If it's coming here, you're getting all of that. All 4 quadrants are in the middle. You're getting a little bit of everything. So you don't want that thing anywhere near the coast. You want it to stay offshore. So what are the trends tonight in all of this? Well, I'm going to show you that in a minute, but just for preparedness reasons, I got to show my ready, set, go graphic. So basically, the whole lower peninsula should be in the set stage. I do this to give people a heads up. A ready state basically means you build a hurricane kit, think about your plan, and pay attention. That's 5 to 7 days out from potentially a storm. That includes the Carolina coast. Set, 3 to 5 days out. Typically means you're in the forecast cone. Pretty much the whole lower peninsula. I put some of these in green just because you're on the west side enough, but that includes parts of South Carolina, Savannah, all the way down here. Inside the forecast cone, plan and prepare for the storm, evacuate if told so. Go. Tomorrow will be go time in Florida. We've already got the Bahamas in the go range. We'll see the go range here because they'll start issuing evacuations for areas here, and we might see the set stage move more up into the Carolinas with time. So let's talk about the models. And I'm going to probably go over there and show you those in a second as we flip around. So I'm going to move the camera, and we're going to go over to this screen over here. So give me 1 second as I pop this up. before I get to that, I am going to pull up the models here real quickly, just to show you them right here. So the ensemble members we look at a lot of different things. Now don't pay attention that someone asked me tonight, what if it keeps moving? That's what we call extrapolation if it keeps moving at its current speed. All of the guidance, this is the latest guidance, just came in tonight. Look at this. A bunch now are offshore. Okay, you see that? See, and I'll try to pinpoint it here with my cursor. I'll grab my telestrator if I can. If it'll let me play. Come on, play. Oh, it won't let me grab the telestrator. Well, that's good. But you can see all of the models now are shifting. So look at these. Very few are making landfall in Florida tonight. They're actually coming to the coast and spinning off and staying offshore. So the trend east is what you want. And look up, even up in the Carolinas. I don't know if you guys can see that. I'll move the map if I can get it up there. Come on. Got to play it first so it'll go up there. But even up here in the Carolinas, it's staying offshore now. You see this? This is actually a good sign. This is why I said earlier, we want this shift to go. But honestly, me looking at this, boy, that is one heck of a boomerang shot there. That is really tough, in my opinion, to get that to boomerang all the way back out that way. So I would be a little wary of that happening like this, unless it continues to shift, because it's going to have to start making this churn earlier. I would love to see this churn happen here, and then spin out that way. But look at this. Here's the coastline. Almost none of the spaghetti plots are lining up with the coastline now. And to show you the rainfall totals, which kind of match up with this, starting to show this trend of, excuse me, a coastal event, you can see how the rainfall is really confined to these areas on the coast and off. So we want to keep pushing this thing that way. We want to get this thing out of here completely over the next 24 hours. So I am going to flip this screen over here, and I will grab my controller here. You might see me step off camera for a second, but we will move this. Let's see if we can get this to work. There we go. Hey, there we go. I'm going to stand over here so you guys can kind of see the map behind me. I don't know if the lighting is as good over here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to move this over here. We're going to go this way. I have to use a remote control for this. There we go. That's a little better right there. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. There we go. So we'll do that. Hey, live TV. So this is the Hurricane Recon out there right now. I don't know if you guys can see it on the map. I'll zoom it in. 951 millibars. So they're crossing again. I've been hitting refresh on my computer a lot to see if we get a new pass there to see, and actually I'm going to hit refresh while I'm talking to you, just to see if we get an update on that pass. So what you're looking at here is the Recon going in there. 950 was the actual, ended up 8 p.m. advisory. Could be 945, 940. It's probably continuing to fall. And look at the uptick in the intensity guidance. So this is a look at the intensity guidance. Right now, we're at a Cat 4, initialized right there. And notice some of the guidance is getting close to Category 5 strength. In fact, one of the models showed Category 5 all the way up to landfall. Though I will be honest with you, Category 5 storms don't maintain that strength for very long. The oddity was Irma. Remember Irma just, was it like 3 or 4 years ago? Was a Category 5 for 72 hours. Last year, Hurricane Michael was a Category 5, but it was only a Category 5 for a half hour. So these really strong hurricanes, it's hard to maintain that. It's like revving your engine at like a 10,000 RPMs. It just can't stay there. It will spike up, it'll come down and go spike back up. The worst case scenario is like we saw in Michael, where it revs up right before landfall. That's the worst case scenario. But notice Category 4 almost all the way through landfall. Now for folks in the Carolinas, everybody's like, you know, what's it going to be like when it gets here? Let's say it hugs the coast like we think it might. I'm going to pull up this graphic real quick. Let's say it hugs the coastline up here. Well, by the time it gets up here, this is going to be next Thursday and Friday, okay? And I don't know if you guys saw that, the intensity guidance, but 7 days out is 168 hours. So look at all the guidance. Now, there's some that keep it offshore and keep it up there strong, but it's so far offshore it won't affect us. But the other ones are down in this tropical storm category. So that's actually a good thing to see it down there. Actually, I'm going to pull this up real quick because I was showing this earlier. We show the spaghetti plots a lot, but I really love this graphic because it actually puts a heat map basically. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. It puts a heat map basically where the tracks are. Let me refresh that. See if I can get it to come back. So instead of having all the spaghetti there, what it does is it shows, there we go, I like that a little better. It shows a heat map where they're clustered. I really like this visualization. So you can see up until landfall here, they're all clustered together. And then there's a little bit of like a hand, like a split. So people, often say, man, you guys don't know where it's going. Actually, we have a pretty good idea where it's going to be in 3 days because it's going to be right in here. The question is, the split here is pretty wide. And even there, we know it's going to be somewhere in there. We know it's not going to be over there. We know it's, so saying we don't know where it's going is actually we're narrowing it down. It's like a funnel. We want the funnel to be narrow as possible. So as we go into the future, seeing that kind of funnel there is the thing. But notice up on the Carolina coast, for folks in the Carolinas in particular, they all stay offshore. In fact, even the Outer Banks. And remember, my quadrant graphic, the storm's going this way. Northeast quadrant would be over water. The west side would be the weak side. Now, there's still some surge, especially up here, because as it's coming here, remember, it's pushing water, but it's also wrapping dry air, so the flood threat would be diminished except for the immediate coast. So if you're on the coast of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, even Florida, you want this whole thing to shift that way. The farther that gets away from you, the better in this whole scenario. So let's go back to the Recon here. And I'm on my buddy's page, Levi. We keep refreshing this to see if haven't got an updated plot here, but I'll show you the cross sections, which are pretty cool. Sometimes we don't show these. But so this is the profile. The hurricane hunters are going through the eye twice. They went through the eye twice. So what you're seeing on the blue line are flight level winds, which got up to 125 knots, and then they dropped almost zero in the eye, and then they spiked back up on the other side. The red is the pressure. So this pressure here is around 946 or 7, but I actually look at the next one, it's lower. So the last pass, the pressure was much lower. And you see the spikes in wind. So up around 125 knots, and the pressure's around 945 millibars. So really, really impressive wind profile as that's going across the storm. And again, let's look at the updated forecast plot on that. So what I'm going to do is show you the plot real quick for Dorian. We should be getting in the new guidance right here tonight. And again, I just showed you that over there, but we'll show you that again. So this is the latest guidance. Notice all of it offshore. This is the shift. Basically, everybody get your fans out, start blowing this way, blow to the east, get this thing out of here. But what we want to see, and if you want to see if this trend's going to happen, I start looking at the outflow down here. I want to start seeing it move north quicker. The more north it gets down here, the better it is that it's going to take one of these tracks. The more south it stays, the better chance it's going to interact with Florida. And so let's look at the satellite image over here. You're seeing it in the corner of the screen, but let me bring it up here real quickly. And one of the things I'm going to watch as it loads is we're looking to see where that outflow is going. So the outflow is really going to tell you the trend. And actually, I should bring it back up over here. Actually, I think I will do that. I'm going to bring it back over here because this is going to take forever to load. So let me swing the camera around, and I'll come back over here. If you didn't guess, those monitors are side by side. So what I'm going to do is bring up the satellite imagery again. And I'll bring it up right here. I'm going to widen it out here in a second, so it should be a little bit easier to see. So that's the wide. Let me give you the wide view. I got to bring it up in infrared so you guys can see it. I like using the visible during the day because it just makes it easier to see everything. Okay, there we go. So what I was saying is one of the things I watch for is where does the outflow going? Because see how the outflow is coming this way? That kind of shows you the movement. Because the same flow in the atmosphere that are pulling these clouds that way are actually moving the storm. So this is in relationship to Florida. You can see the system there, and there it is right there. So I'm going to have to update my graphics looking at the new model data tonight. And the reason I'd have to do that, and I'll show you why, when I bring this up earlier. I think I showed this to you guys earlier. So this is old because we have this at a 30% chance, this at a 60% chance, and this a 10% chance. I would shift all these east and start ramping up these chances to 40% and maybe this to 60%, but I would shift it offshore and have this at a 20% just inland. So the good news for the Carolinas, the threat is there. I mean, trust me, the Carolina threat has gone up tremendously over the last couple days, but the more this shifts east, the better it is for all of us. And again, if you're just tuning in, the thing that really struck us tonight was some of the new data coming in, you know, looking at the Euros and the ensembles. This data right here, all the guidance is shifted off the coast. So this is a real good sign that we're starting to see things shift off. And the less tracks I see over land, the better overall it's going to be. So that's kind of what we're looking at tonight. I hope that explains some of the things. I'm sorry, I couldn't log into chat for some reason. I do not know why. I'm going to try logging into chat again, but the chat didn't seem to work for me. But that's what we're looking at tonight. I will do a vlog tomorrow, and obviously I'll do one on Sunday. We'll try to do as many as possible over the next couple of days. But right now in the Carolinas, the number one thing I could tell you to do is just be prepared. And again, I'll go back to my Ready, Set, Go map. This should really, behind me, you're going to see this should be your current state of preparedness. Everybody on the North Carolina coast down to maybe Hilton Head should be in the ready stage. From Hilton Head south into Florida, you should be in the set stage right now. And tomorrow, parts of Florida, you're likely going to have to go into the go range because it's just going to be too close to call. You're playing chicken with a Category 4 or 5 storm that's heading towards your coastline. So that's it for tonight. Tune in tonight at 11. I'll have the latest track. If I get it early, I will post it on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks for tuning in tonight. You're going to see some behind-the-scenes magic as I go over here and actually turn off the live stream. So good night, everybody.